Hello again, everyone. Continuing on with our series on witches. I'm going to do a quick rundown of a couple short stories I got out of a anthology collection called the Witch and Warlock Mega Pack. It contains 25 short stories on the subject. I'll put a link to it in the description. Costs about it. You can get a digital download through Amazon, I believe, Barnes and Nobles for about $1. And then once again, I'm always spouting off about the Hoopla app if your library does that. Or if there's another way you can get into it. I believe the Hoopla app also has a digital book of it you can get for free via that way. Um, the first story I'm going to talk about is one written by Lovecraft and Henry S. Whitehead, and it was titled "The Trap." And it released in 1932 issue of Strange Tales of Mystery and Terror. And there's going to be some spoilers in this, so if you want to read the stories before I give the breakdown of what happened in them, then probably stop this video and come back to it later to get my thoughts on it. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead. So the first story, The Trap, it starts off with just talking about the narrator of the story is a teacher at a boys' school in New England right now, but he's traveled abroad and he's come back to a New England type area, and he's teaching there, and his last venture he was in is the West Indies, and there's an issue in the school with the heat, so he has the kids come to his he has a fire going in his room of his where he's staying at, and then he has the boys come there for a lesson, and he has this strange looking ancient, well, not ancient but very old mirror, and on the way out, one of the well, actually he dismisses the class, and one of the students asks if he could stay, and because he doesn't have another lessons for some time yet, and for whatever reason, this one student is drawn to the mirror, and he goes and puts his finger up to the mirror, and then the teacher kind of hears him say something like "ouch," and then he's kind of wondering, and then the kid doesn't want to say anything at first, but then he goes, "It just was an odd sensation. I felt a strange sensation as something was pulling me into the glass," and from there we learned that the teacher recovered this mirror from an estate sale when he was in the West Indies, and has just recently got it out of storage and had it in his room, and where everyone was earlier in the day. And then later throughout the day, the kid that put his finger in the mirror, I guess, returned to the teacher's home when he wasn't there, and he had a whatever drawer pulled to the mirror, and he touched the mirror, and he gets trapped up inside within the mirror, and the this student starts communicating with the teacher via mental telepathy or whatever. He's since this story emphasizes, since he was in the West Indies, things like this are of kind of a little more commonplace than talked about anywhere else, and he's had some experiences with this. So the student goes missing. They're looking for him. He's been missing for a couple of days now, and then after all this is said and done, while the teacher's sleeping, he goes in these trance-like states and starts communicating with his student, and everything in the mirror is in the inverse. The colors are all reversed, and the student, when he's trying to communicate him with these very difficult time actually speaking, it's everything's forced, and he has to relearn how to talk. And then if the further he looks larger when he gets further away from the mirror, everything's in the inverse. So throughout the story, he keeps trying to figure out what's this all about. He's just doing research and stuff on the mirror and everything, and he comes across and finds out some information. This mirror was a product of a glass worker in the 1600s named Axel Holmes, and it was also discovered that Axel Holm was doing, in addition to being uh, a crafting glass worker, and that he got a hold of a piece of ancient glass. It's called like Loki's glass, and he incorporated this piece of glass into the mirror, and he was doing spells and trying to figure out a way to so he could live on forever. So he does all these things, and he sends this Axel Holmes has sent a couple of his servants prior to him to reside within the glass, and then another younger female and a small boy. They're all trapped within the glass with him, and then so he starts the teacher starts researching all these events more and more, and kind of comes to a conclusion. He starts examining the mirror, and he finds the slightest difference in one section of the mirror. He knows that's where the Loki glass is. So he makes a plan to obtain a tool so he can cut the glass from the mirror, and he's going to do this at the opposite supposed time as when he believes the student got caught into the mirror, which is going to be at 2 in the morning, as opposed to when the student went in to the glass at 2 p.m. And he does this, and he cuts the student. He cuts the glass out, and he's overtaken by a smell and a musty smell, and then he's before it causes him to faint. But before he faints, he sees that the student has now returned to his room, and he sees the images of these other people that were trapped within the glass fade, and then his student kind of catches them, and then brings them back to, and then they have a discussion that nobody's going to believe the story, and that so they go through this big long story of that the student was the victim of a car accident and was hit, and kind of lost his memory for a short while, and then while he was in convalescing and recovering, then when he finally came to and got his memories back, and that he called the school, and this teacher was the only one up at the time, and took the message and started and went and picked him up and brought him back, and then upon doing so, he noticed when the student was back now, he noticed that the student who was once right-handed is now left-handed, and he also notices that he takes a listen to his heartbeat and everything. His heart's beating in the opposite from uh, top to bottom. Now it's beating in actually a reverse type of pattern, and he's assuming that this was all due to the way he was forcefully extricated from the mirror. He said that maybe if we would have done things in a different manner, this wouldn't have happened. But yeah, so it was an interesting story. I actually read it, and then I actually listened to a version of it on YouTube as a little audio file or ebook. It's a short little read or listen to, but it's interesting. It's Lovecraft. It's a bit dry and slow in parts, but I wasn't a big fan in the first reading, but after I listened to it through the second time, I picked up some things I missed out on the first read, and all in all, I enjoyed the story. If I was gonna rank it on a scale 5 stars, I'd probably get a 3.5. It was a fun read, okay read, but it was a little bit dry for my taste. But that's my review on that story. Excuse me. The next story I read was The Hollow of Three Hills, which is written by Nathaniel Hawthorne. And the premise of this story is there's a younger woman that should have been in the throes of life, and has is meeting a old crone in a hollow area. The two of them together on a late October afternoon, and she wants the crone to tell her do a kind of a um have relay some visions to her. She wants to know about what's happening back in her home. She's uh she's left her home and doesn't sound like on good terms. So the crone takes a seat upon within this hollow, takes a seat upon a fallen oak tree, and calls a woman to her and has a woman lay her head down in her lap, and she starts reciting some prayer, and starts then the woman starts hearing echoes and enchantments and voices from her past life. The first sets of voices she hears are those of her parents, and talking about the shame she's brought upon her family, and all the all the worries and woes and gray hairs caused upon their head, and how they've had to live with and how to deal with the shame she's brought upon them. And then the second tale we're told by from the crone is she's relaying she's hearing voices of wailing and crying and upsetness of her husband, that husband she left was unfaithful to and left, and then the child also she left to die. And then the last vision the crone relays to her is she's hearing discussions and people and talking about it sounds like a death knell or a funeral march approaching, and we learn that they're talking about the woman that left and did all these things to her family and her husband, and um it just comes to pass that they're it's foreshadowing, foretelling her death, that she was kind of an unknown in this area, and she did all these things and left and vanished, and that was her plight and case. And then after the crone has the final vision, she kind of moves her legs a little bit to rouse the woman that she's done, and then the woman just lies there still. She's died at this point, and then the crone just kind of cackles to herself and has says what talks about what sweet sport we've had in this final hour. So that was a real quick, short little read, and also a good. You can find audio of this story on YouTube too. I'll look for the links and for the audio I listened to on it. But it was an interesting read. Had great prose and imagery, of course, you'd expect from a writer such as Hawthorne. So this one I would give a probably a 4.5 out of 5. It's not an action story or a lot of you know hoobu jubu type uh, spell witchcraft or witchcrafting or anything like that. But it was an interesting read, and just it was a good read for the way the prose and the style was written of the time. So very enjoyable. And yeah, that's my take on these two stories. All right, you guys